Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, and today we're going to talk about UFC Vegas 106, Michael Morales versus Gilbert Burns. And my friends, it's going down this Saturday night live at the Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. You got the young prodigy Michael Morales taking on Gilbert Burns in a welterweight main event. So I'm going to break down this card. Obviously, I'm recording this on Monday. Y'all already know Wednesday night, I'm going to be live at 7 p.m. Eastern time with a guest. And then after I break this down right here, I'm going to also recap the UFC 315 fight card with JDM dethroning Belal Muhammad by inflicting a lot of damage on him, Valentina retaining her belt, among other fights. So without further ado, let's get right down to business. Because in this main event, we got Michael Morales. He's 17-0, taking on Gilbert Burns, who's 22-8. And currently, they got it. Michael Morales minus 825. The comeback on Gilbert Burns is plus 575. So already off the bat, you see these odds. You're like, what's going on? I know in the intro I said Gilbert's 40. He's actually 38, but in fight years, I think he's well above 40. Listen, Gilbert in his prime, obviously everybody knows about his jiu-jitsu. Some of the best no-gi jiu-jitsu in MMA, one hitter quitter. And he actually started off his career at 55s. And he really had his biggest impact at 170, even made it to a title shot, gave Khamzat Chimaev his toughest fight to date, has beat other people along the way. So there's a lot of credit to give a guy like Gilbert Burns. But on the other side with Michael Morales, you're dealing with a young phenom, a prodigy. I mean, let's put it in perspective. This guy was born in 1999, my friends. He's just a kid, right? But he's been given the adequate test to earn this opportunity against Gilbert Burns. I mean, they love to test all their prospects against Trevin Giles, right? And Michael Morales, not only did he beat Trevin Giles, but he did so in emphatic fashion and in his UFC debut, a first-round knockout. Whereas you look at Mike Malott last week, who had an incredible knockout against Radke, but it took Mike Malott an ugly 3-round decision to get past Giles. Morales handled him in one. So just to let you know what kind of prospect we're dealing with. And obviously, the way he handled Max Griffin, the way he handled Jake Matthews, it was evident. And of course, the way he knocked out Neil Magny in the first round, it was apparent and evident that, hey kid, we got to give you a step up in competition. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're giving him a top-ranked guy in Gilbert Burns, who's super dangerous everywhere the fight goes, has been in there with everybody. And this is going to let us know exactly where Michael Morales is at. Now, obviously, the age gap is massive in this spot. To be exact on what the age gap is here, we're talking about, I'm pulling it up. We ain't even talking about 10 years, my friends. We're talking about a 13-year age gap. Damn. Like, that's not something you see every day, especially at this level. But we've been seeing these spots a lot where out with the old, in with the new. And especially in this welterweight division, you know, Kamaru Usman is getting ushered out by Buckley. Leon Edwards got ushered out by Brady. Yesterday, well, Saturday night, you saw JDM usher Belal from the throne. So the kind of guys that are in their upper 30s are getting ushered out by this new generation of welterweights, and Michael Morales is at the front of the line. So a couple spots where this could get interesting is, you know, Neil Magny kind of pinned Michael Morales up against the fence in a kind of like a body lock situation where he didn't quite have his back because, like, you know, they weren't on the ground, so he didn't have like hooks in or anything, but it was against the fence. And a guy like Gilbert Burns in spots like that, it'd be interesting to see if he can turn that into a possible back take or something like that. But aside from, you know, some possible submission or knockout, I don't think Burns has much of a chance in this fight. And I know I'm not breaking any ground here talking about a minus 800 favorite, right? But just the physicality of Michael Morales alone, mixed in with his maturity for his age and his skills everywhere. He fights behind a long jab. And in this fight, he's got an 8-inch reach advantage, my friends, mixed with a 13-year age advantage. Now, it says that Gilbert is 5'10", which, yeah, okay, bro. He's more like 5'8". So the height difference, it says here it's only 2 inches. I think the height difference is more like a 4 to 5 inch height difference here. So, yeah, I expect Michael Morales to come out here and make a statement. Now, whether it's a finish or not, that remains to be seen, but I would not be surprised one bit if it was. Co-main event of the evening in the light heavyweight division, we got the Bear Jew, Paul Craig. He's 17-9-1, taking on Rodolfo Bellato, who's 12-2-1. Currently, they got it. Rodolfo Bellato minus 550. The comeback on Paul Craig is plus 400. So Paul Craig is one of these guys that has some amazing wins on his resume, but he's kind of been figured out at this point. Everyone knows what to expect. Do not go into this guy's guard because he's got a nasty triangle choke. But if you can avoid that, chances are you're going to beat this guy on the feet and you can outmaneuver him on the ground. Now, luckily for his opponent, Rodolfo Bellato, he is a black belt in jiu-jitsu. So I don't think he's going to be too surprised by what Craig brings to the game on the mat. That being said, like I said, Craig has tapped out champions, Magomed Ankalaev, Jamal Hill, top 5 contenders like Nikita Krylov, top 15 heavyweights like Kennedy and Nzechukwu. So you got to be careful. But Bellato, my biggest issue with Bellato is that he gets hit too much standing, but that's not really a concern here against Paul Craig. In fact, I think Bellato is going to be the one swinging bombs at Paul Craig. I wouldn't be surprised if Bellato actually comes out here and knocks out Paul Craig. So, start to soften him up with calf kicks and then eventually land something big upstairs. I'm going Bellato by knockout here. Oh, man, featured bout in the lightweight division. We got 2 featherweights going up to lightweight. We got Sodiq Yusuff. He's 13-4, taking on Myron, the legend Santos, who's 15-1. Currently, they got it. Myron Santos minus 135. The comeback on Sodiq Yusuff is plus 115. So fans of Half the Battle know that I was huge on Sodiq Yusuff when he first came into the UFC. This guy was one of my top 5 prospects, and I predicted that one day he'd make it to the top 5. Now, I think he either made it to number 5 or fell just short in that Edson Barboza fight. Like, he definitely made it to the top 10, that's for sure, but I think he fell just short of making it to the top 5. And unfortunately now, I think Sodiq might be on a bit of a decline. And that's what sucks. Like, you scout these fighters and you think that they're such bright prospects. They end up going really far, but a fighter's window is so small in this sport. And now Sodiq's no longer the young up-and-comer. Myron Santos is the young up-and-comer. Like, I remember this spot a few years ago when Sodiq Yusuff was the young, hungry prospect, and he was fighting, Gabriel Benitez and Andre Fili and all these guys making a name for himself. But now Myron Santos is the young, hungry prospect making a name for himself. And now Sodiq Yusuff is no longer a prospect. I don't even know how I call him a contender anymore. I call him a veteran at this point. But look, at Sodiq's best, huge calf kicks, huge bombs upstairs, great takedown defense, good takedown offense, underrated jiu-jitsu. Like, Sodiq could do it all. The big issue with Sodiq is that he's a little bit on the chinny side. And yeah, and we saw signs of it from back in the day on his regional scene. He'd get wobbled a lot, even in fights he won, like the Gabriel Benitez fight, even a fight he lost against Arnold Allen, which went the distance. But man, Sodiq did some big chicken dances in that fight. And then most recently, he got knocked out bad by Diego Lopez. Also, I kind of felt like that Edson Barboza fight was a bit of a stun. That first round, Sodiq looks like the best featherweight on planet Earth. And then what happened in rounds 2 through 5? It's like he completely let his foot off the gas. And, I've talked to members or former members of that gym, and they told me that, Sodiq, he's just been dealing with so many injuries. And, ever since he had that health scare, he just hasn't quite fully recovered, which is so unfortunate because of how talented Sodiq is. And also, I've had Sodiq on the show. He's such a great guy. He's so easy to root for. So you hate to see stuff like that, but you just have to be objective about it. Like I was last week with Belal. I've bet on Belal in so many fights, but I told you all last week that line was off. And, the way to beat Belal is to inflict damage on him. And why pay a premium price when you've been getting underdog odds every other fight, right? Well, here with Sodiq, you are getting underdog odds, but some people are saying it's recency bias. I'm not quite sure, because with Myron Santos, he's got some special qualities to his striking style, man. This guy can strike, and his takedown defense has come a long way compared to where it used to be. Now, I know the recency bias of him coming off, he won the fight, but, a lot of people thought Francis Marshall won the fight, including myself. It's considered one of the biggest robberies of the year. So a lot of people are holding that against him. But I got to say, this is a completely different matchup than Francis Marshall. With Francis Marshall, there was a big threat of the takedown. And, I think that really messed with Myron to the point where he actually got dropped in round 1. Now, I need to rewatch that fight, and I'm going to before my breakdown on Wednesday. But at this point, I think that Myron Santos is actually being a little overlooked despite him being a slight favorite here. And I think that by the time, fight day rolls through, this could be a minus 110 pick'em. I wouldn't even be surprised if the line flipped and you got dog odds on Myron Santos by the time a fight day comes. I'm going to be keeping my eyes peeled to that line, watching a little bit more tape, because I'm not a fan of Sodiq's current form. I'm a huge Sodiq Yusuff fan, but his current form, I don't see future top 5 guy anymore. So, yeah, let's see what happens. Let's see where this line goes. Next up in the middleweight division, we got a matchup between Nursultan Ruzaboyev. He's 35-9-2, taking on Dustin Stoltzfus, who's 16-6. Currently, they got it. Nursultan Ruzaboyev minus 280. The comeback on Dustin Stoltzfus is plus 240. Interesting fight, man. Nursultan Ruzaboyev has a nasty right hand. Like, oh my God, that right hand is a missile. But his issue is his takedown defense ain't the best, but it's gotten better. So with Stoltzfus, it's like the opposite. You know, he doesn't have the best chin. He's been knocked out plenty of times, but on the mat, he's a legit black belt, dude. So I'm curious if he's able to mix in takedowns like Buckley was able to do. But you guys got to remember that Buckley fight was at 170 pounds. Now Ruzaboyev is back up at 85. So yeah, I see this being pretty straightforward in the sense that on the feet, I think Ruzaboyev can knock out Stoltzfus, and on the mat, I think Stoltzfus can grind out Ruzaboyev. So I'm gonna watch a little bit more tape before Wednesday and let y'all know which way I lean on that one. So next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Julian Erosa. He's 31-11, taking on Melquizael Costa, who's 23-7. And currently they got it. Melquizael Costa minus 180. The comeback on Julian Erosa is plus 155. I gotta admit, guys, I've been very, very impressed with Melquizael Costa's current form. You know, when he first came in the UFC, I was like, yeah, I'm not quite sure. You know, for a guy that's so experienced, you know, making his debut, there were some things, some fight IQ things I saw on the regional scene that I didn't like. But I'll tell you what, this guy has really paid his dues in the UFC, and he's starting to come into his own. Now he's on a little win streak, and he's beating real guys. He ran through Andre Fili in one round. He beat Christian Rodriguez in Mexico, in the elevation of Mexico City. Like, I like what I'm seeing from Melquizael Costa. I've been pretty impressed with him, man. And the most important thing is that now he's got his confidence. Now he feels like, hey, I do belong in the UFC, and I'm ready to go on a run. I mean, he's got the requisite experience necessary to challenge against some of these top 15 guys. And I think if he gets past someone like Julian Erosa, that will be the litmus test he needs to start going in there against these top 15 guys. So, and the thing about Julian Erosa is if you're not quite ready for a guy like Julian Erosa, he's going to expose it in a way where like he'll just dangle off your neck, he'll knock you out, he'll beat you by points, like whatever the case may be. You have to be on a certain level to beat Julian Erosa. Now, luckily for Costa, not only does he have the experience necessary to beat a guy like Julian Erosa, but Julian Erosa has one of the most suspect chins currently in the UFC featherweight division. You know, he's been knocked out 7 to 9 times that we know of, right? And knocked down a handful of other times. So I honestly think that Mel Costa continues his momentum here and gets a knockout win over Julian Erosa and challenges for a top 15 spot his very next fight. Now, next up in the lightweight division, we got a matchup between Mateus Camilo. He's 9-2, making his UFC debut against Gabe Green, who's 11-5. So Gabe Green, he's dropping to 155 pounds from 170. And currently they got it. Mateus Camilo minus 185. The comeback on Gabe Green is plus 160. This is an interesting fight because Mateus Camilo kind of has a traditional Muay Thai style, very heavy leg kicks, and he's been getting a lot better. Like, you watch some of his older fights, man, he was getting tapped out. Like if you pull up my Twitter page, dude, he got tapped up by some white dude with dreadlocks. I was like, my weed dealer tapped out Mateus Camilo. And this Saturday, he makes his UFC debut. But to his credit, I think he was only like 21 when that fight happened. So now if we see stuff like that happen in the UFC, we're going to fade the shit out of him. But I like how he's developed since then, man. He's got some really good get-ups. Like in that last fight against that kid from Tajikistan, the kid that went to that press conference and told Dana, hey, I think he told Dana I'm 9-0 or 10-0 or something. He was actually 8-0 at the time. Like, sign me to the UFC. So Dana put him on a looking for a fight card in Korea that the Korean Zombie hosted, and it was against this Camilo guy. And Camilo went out there and stuffed a lot of the takedowns, and the times that he didn't stuff the takedowns, he got back up from bottom. But one thing that we know for sure is Camilo landed all the damage in that fight, and as a result, he won the decision. Now he's in the UFC against Gabe Green. And Gabe Green, he's had a tough run in the UFC, man. He was outsized at 70s, but had a really good fight with D-Rod in his debut. Beat Phil Rowe, beat Johan Lainez. And the way he beat Johan Lainez, Johan was never the same ever again, because he took an ass whooping up front, and then he broke Lainez with body shots in that second round, and Lainez was never the same guy ever again. And then obviously Gabe Green, you know, I remember when Ian Gary was minus 150 against Gabe Green, and I bet Ian Gary there, and they had a really good fight. And then I was at Gabe Green's fight against Brian Battle in South Carolina, and man, he got slept badly. I think it was South Carolina, either North Carolina or South Carolina. But either way, I was at that car. Shout out to my boy Dan for hooking me up with those tickets. I appreciate you, fam. Don't worry, I did not forget about that. Thank you, brother. But yeah, I saw Brian Battle sleep Gabe Green in like 15 seconds or something. And Gabe Green, he hasn't fought since then, but now he's dropping to 55s. He's taking on this dude, Mateus Camilo. It's an interesting fight because I'm not that sold on Camilo, but I am sold on Green being like a UFC journeyman. So I need to watch a little more tape on Camilo to see exactly how good he is. Like I saw his most recent fight and I saw, some of his older fights, but I need to see the in-betweens to see how much he's developed and evolved and see where he's really at. But what I do know is that he trains with Myron Santos and he's around Eric Nixick all the time. So that's a good thing. And Gabe Green, he's a fade, but he's been in there with a way higher level of competition than Mateus Camilo. So that's a really interesting fight for sure. And then also in the lightweight division, we got Jared Gordon taking on Thiago Moises. Jared Gordon, he's 20-7, taking on Thiago Moises, who's 19-8. Currently, they got it. Jared Gordon, -115. The comeback on Thiago Moises is -105. Like, I understand Thiago Moises is the younger guy here. I think he's only 28, 29, and Jared Gordon's like 36. But, man, Jared Gordon's been getting better every single fight, and I like how he's easing into this like veteran status in the UFC. And he even gave Paddy Pimblett his toughest fight. So one thing about Jared Gordon is he'll be there for all 15 minutes unless you chin him. And Thiago Moises isn't really known for finishing too many guys. He's kind of got good calf kicks, good jiu-jitsu, but fights at a really low pace. Jared Gordon fights at a way higher pace. If it wasn't for the age, I think that Jared Gordon would be a bigger favorite here. So I'm actually leaning a bit towards Jared Gordon. You just have to be careful because of the age, of course. Now, next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Connor Matthews. He's 7-3, taking on Yadier Delvaille, who's 8-0. Currently, they got it. Yadier Delvaille -430. The comeback on Connor Matthews is +330. I honestly don't remember Delvaille from Contender Series. So, like I said, I'm recording this on Monday. On Wednesday, when I go live at 7 p.m. Eastern time with a guest, I'll have all the info and all the knowledge on all these fighters, and I'll be well caught up and ready to give you guys some good info. But on Mondays, just want to give you some preliminary thoughts, and my preliminary thoughts are I really don't remember Yadier Delvaille, so I got to go back and rewatch some footage on him. Now, next up in the bantamweight division, we got a matchup between Luana Santos. She's 8-2, taking on Tainara Lisboa, who's 7-2. Currently, they got it. Luana Santos -135. The comeback on Tainara Lisboa is +115. This is a great fight. So Luana Santos going back up to 135 pounds for this one, and Tainara Lisboa comes from a Muay Thai background. Even competed against Valentina Shevchenko in Muay Thai, lost decisions there, but still competed back in the day. Is 2-0 in the UFC. Has a perfect start. Her striking looks really good for MMA. She lets her hands go, and her ground game, the takedown defense ain't quite the best, but she does make attempts to get back up to her feet. It's just here against Luana Santos, you got to be worried about that judo background. But on the feet, I do think Tainara Lisboa's got Luana covered. Like Luana, she likes to swing and she's very tough. She'll go for it. But Tainara, her combinations are a lot crisper, a lot cleaner. It's just we got to worry about Luana Santos getting on top of Tainara. But I actually think there's a dogger pass situation. Just comes down to, can Lisboa keep this fight standing or not? Or maybe Lisboa can get takedowns of her own like she did her last fight. But where she really has an advantage here is on the feet. So let's see if she uses that. Now, next up in the strawweight division, we got a matchup between Denise Gomes. She's 10-3, taking on Elise Reed, who's 8-4. Currently, they got it. Denise Gomes -550. Holy shit! The comeback on Elise Reed is +400. I mean, I've always been more impressed with Denise Gomes because she has finished women in the UFC. She comes out here to fight, and Elise Reed's kind of been hit or miss. So for that reason, I'll pick Denise Gomes, but I'm not sure if this price is right, especially with the current state of judging. This price is only right if Denise comes out here and just dominates or finishes. But if this is one of those, Sal Diamato's one of the judges, Chris Lee's the other judge, and the deciding factor is Adelaide Bird, hell no, I don't want no -550 action there. But I'm going to watch a little more tape on it before Wednesday. Maybe I end up thinking it is that mismatch. But pre-tape, I think it's, I lean Denise Gomes, but I'm not interested at the current price. Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between Hyung Sung Park. He's 9-0, taking on Carlos Hernandez, who's 10-4. Currently, they got it. Hyung Sung Park -150. The comeback on Carlos Hernandez is +130. So Carlos Hernandez has been like fighting like Japanese prospect after Japanese prospect and Korean prospect, and it's like they're feeding him to all the Asian prospects. It's very interesting how that's happening. Like, he fought Tyra, he fought Tumen Dembro, he fought Ray Suruya, and now he's fighting Hyung Sung Park. Interesting. Listen, Carlos Hernandez can scrap, and he was involved in one of the best fights in Contender Series history against Daniel Bayrez. That was an incredible fight. And Carlos Hernandez, just like, you have to be on a certain level to beat him. You have to be a solid average flyweight if you want to beat Carlos Hernandez. So we're going to find out if Pyeongseon Park is that or not. And then last but not least, in the strawweight division, we got a matchup between Luana Pinheiro. She's 11-4, taking on Tisha Torres, who's 14-7. And currently they got it. Tisha Torres minus 425. The comeback on Luana Pinheiro is plus 325. So I know Luana Pinheiro hasn't had the best looks in some of her fights. You know, she kind of quit in a couple of her fights. But she also went the distance with Jillian Robertson and won a round, which is crazy to think about in hindsight. And Tisha Torres has had a kid recently. She hasn't quite looked the same. I mean, she's still very, very good. I mean, Tisha Torres has been fighting a long time, and she's got lots of output, decent takedown defense, at least way better than it used to be. So I can see her being favored here. It's just, I personally don't feel comfortable laying a price like this, you know, on someone that's kind of at the end of their career. And this is like back up against the wall for Pinheiro. Even though Pinheiro has shown a break in fight, she even pulled an Aljamain Sterling acting job against Randa Marcos. I still think that if this goes the distance, it has the potential to be close, especially with these judges. So I'd tread cautiously laying a price like this on Tisha, although I do favor her outright. Let's recap UFC 315, my friends. So JDM went out there and beat Belal by unanimous decision. So go back and check out my breakdown. I said there's only one way to beat Belal. If you want to beat Belal Muhammad, you must inflict damage on Belal Muhammad. And that's exactly what JDM did. Now, Belal's been receiving a lot of heat for this performance. People saying that he didn't look like himself, that he didn't wrestle enough, and this and that. Actually, I think you got to give all the credit to JDM. Why is that? Let's look at the stats real quick. Let's look at these numbers Belal put up. Belal put up incredible numbers. Belal landed 132 significant strikes, attempted 9 takedowns, and secured 3 of them. Like, dude, those numbers are good enough to beat the majority of the division straight up. That beats like 99% of the UFC welterweight division. Like, I think that those numbers are good enough to beat Shavkat Rakhmonov, because look at Shavkat's last fight against Ian. He landed less than 40 significant strikes in 5 rounds. Shavkat fights at like less than half the pace that Belal fought against JDM. I think that maybe JDM is just that good. Like, y'all need to understand what you saw. Like, there's a reason, like, people thought that Belal was just going to come out here and just shoot off the bat. But have you ever seen Belal fight? Belal likes to throw hands first with everybody he fights, including Leon, his very last fight. He rocked Leon. And the thing about it was he wasn't able to get JDM behind that black line, get JDM going backwards. So that, for that reason, he wasn't able to dictate the pace of the fight. It was JDM that was dictating the pace, fighting behind a nasty jab. And also, one beautiful thing that JDM did to discourage Belal from shooting was he kept feinting that knee up the middle. And there were a couple times it landed and was flush, but there were other times where he just gave him the threat, a fake/feint, to give him that threat of the knee up the middle. Because when you're going up against a guy who wants to take you down, you got to give him the threat of shots up the middle, whether it's an uppercut, a knee, whatever the case may be, getting down low, letting him know that you're aware of what he wants to do. And that's exactly what JDM did. JDM let Belal know right off the bat, I know exactly what you want to do. I'm feinting this uppercut. I'm feinting this knee up the middle. I'm circling. I'm walking you down. I'm the one leading the dance. And JDM fought a brilliant fight. And I think this, like, I'll let you all know when it's more about what someone did wrong as opposed to what someone did right. In this case, it was 100% about what JDM did right, not about what Belal did wrong. Belal fought fine. Like I said, the way Belal fought on Saturday beats 99% of the division. And some people might think I'm crazy, but look at the numbers, guys. Like I said, over 130 significant strikes, 9 takedown attempts, 3 secured. Yeah, that beats 99% of the division. But JDM was prepared, and JDM knew how to dethrone Belal. The way to beat Belal is to inflict damage on Belal. And JDM went out there and landed 178 significant strikes. That is how you inflict damage on someone as tough as Belal. But as y'all know, Belal, you know, when I say tough, I mean tough. This dude would not go down. He would not take no for an answer. He kept marching forward. I mean, he truly has the heart of a lion. Like, I'm not counting out Belal from getting another title shot. Like, when Kamaru lost his belt, he got head kicked dead, right? I was like, yeah, there's no way in hell he'll ever be champ again. When Leon lost his belt, he got demoralized and quit, and then quit his very next fight. Whereas there was like no quit in Belal. Belal was not knocked out dead. In fact, I think Belal can come out here, beat Shafkat, and get a title shot again. But it's like I told y'all in my breakdown, I thought JDM is a way tougher fight for Belal than Shafkat because of the pace JDM fights at, and the fact that when JDM gets taken down, he does not accept bottom position. Look at that Gilbert Burns fight. Gilbert has the best jiu-jitsu credentials in the welterweight division, and JDM scrambled up from bottom with him and then knocked him out. So he was able to nullify all the grappling attacks of Belal and just ping him for 5 straight rounds. So amazing job by JDM. And I think Belal will be back for sure. And like I said, I still think Belal can come out here and beat a guy like Shafkat and beat a majority of the division. But JDM was a terrible matchup for him. He's the new champ, and I look forward to seeing the new champ JDM fight Islam Makhachev. Apparently, Shafkat's going to be out till 2026. That sucks, but there's Sean Brady, there's Ian Gary, there's Islam Makhachev. There's a lot of options, and if Belal wins a fight or two, he's right back in the mix as well. So, yeah, the welterweight division is truly great right now. Now, in the co-main event of the evening, Valentina Shevchenko defended her belt against Manon Fiorot. Now, it was a very frustrating fight for me because I bet on Manon Fiorot there. Now, after the fight was done, a lot of people were like, oh, you got robbed and this and that. And don't you feel like you got the short end of the stick? No, I feel like I'm very pissed off at myself for handicapping that fight wrong. So a lot of people actually thought I made a good bet on Fiorot because of how close the fight was. No, I didn't. I made a terrible bet on Fiorot. Let me tell you why. It would have been a good bet if I bet Fiorot at the odds that Valentina was at like dog odds. But minus 120 odds, I don't want no 50-50 fight that could go either way. I was expecting domination. And after that first round, look, the first round, Valentina really put it on Fiorot. But it seemed like in that second round, Fiorot's making adjustments. She's about to take over. Valentina's activity started to wane badly. I was like, okay, let's go, Manon. So Manon started to do really good. It's just the optics were so bad at the absolute worst times. It's like you're dominating a round, then you get dropped, right? Like you're winning a round, then your face starts bleeding. It's like you're winning a round, then you get taken down at the absolute worst time. It was like, oh my God. So at the end of the fight, look, I thought it could go either way, but deep down, I was like, yeah, Valentina's about to get this win, even though I thought it could go either way. But let's say Manon got the win. Of course, I would have been happy to cash that bet, but I would have still criticized my own handicapping because, like I said, going into this fight before the fact, I thought that this was going to be a domination by Manon Fiorot. I thought she was going to double her up on strikes, not take any damage, stuff the majority of the takedowns, and do what she does. And props to Valentina for those sharp counters, the takedown attempts, and doing what she needed to do to win that belt. Now, do I think she actually won the fight? I don't really know who I thought won the fight. Like, I thought Valentina had the bigger moments in rounds 1 and 4, but those are only 2 rounds of 5, right? I thought Manon probably won the other 3 rounds, but like, how could I cry robbery there? I can't. That fight could literally go either way, and I made a bad bet paying a pick'em price in a literal pick'em fight. So in a pick'em fight, I want dog odds. I didn't expect it to play out like a pick'em fight. I expected it to play out like a domination, but it played out like a pick'em. So for that reason, I made a bad bet at pick'em odds. And yeah, but I still think that Valentina is vulnerable, and maybe my girl Natalia Silva is going to be the one to dethrone her. But Manon Fiorot got to go back to the drawing board. And Valentina, we're respect on the win and all that, but I'm looking very intently to getting this money back that I lost on Manon. Not because of an ego thing or anything like that, but because I think that Valentina is one of the more vulnerable champions we have currently. Just saying, that's just my opinion. So yeah. Now, featured bout, Aiemann Zahabi defeated Jose Aldo. Man, that first round, Jose Aldo was looking vintage. He had hurt Zahabi bad. It was like, okay, Jose, this is what we love to see. And in that second round, Jose was doing his thing too. But there was a midpoint in that second round where the tide kind of turned and Jose starts coasting, which he even did in his prime. And then that third round, he starts teeing off on Aiemann again. I'm like, yes, Jose. But when Aiemann didn't, die, Jose looks up at the clock. He sees there's 3 minutes left. He's like, oh, shit. And it seemed like that just took all the fight out of him. And when Aiemann got him down, Aldo couldn't get back up, and Aiemann took that third round. And I guess he took the second round too, because they called it 29-28 unanimous. You know, I thought the second round could have went either way. So 29-28 either way, you know, great fight. Shout out Jose Aldo. He retired. You know, I've been watching this guy since either late high school, early college. Always will be a fan. And, you know, for one of the guys that went out, he went out on his terms. Not only that, like, he wasn't like getting knocked around all over the place like a lot of fighters do in their retirement fights, getting knocked out every single fight or some shit like that. Nah, he went out in very respectable fashion for Aiemann Zahabi. Hey, man, you just got the biggest win of your career. The only unfortunate part for Aiemann is that now he's going to have to fight some top 15 opposition, which I'm not convinced he's ready for at all. Like, I'm talking about these actual real top 15 studs. I'm not talking about these older guys like Pedro Munoz that he's been fighting. I'm talking about these young guys. We'll see. We'll see. But hey, man, either way, Aiemann made it to a 6-fight win streak in the UFC, which I would have never predicted. So, man, and he got to, you know, cap it off with a win over the great Jose Aldo. So it's not going to get any better than that, is what I'm trying to say. Now, also on the card, Natalia Silva defeated the former champion Alexa Grasso via unanimous decision, 30-27 ×3. You know, I said in my breakdown that I thought Natalia Silva's performance against Jessica Andrade was one of the best hit and run performances I've ever seen. I can say that about this performance too. Natalia Silva's performance against Alexa Grasso was like another one of the best hit and run performances I've ever seen. Her footwork is just so good. Her feints, her kicks, her punches, her fight IQ, her takedown defense, and her cardio, man, she kept that up for 3 straight rounds. Wow, I'm blown away from Natalia Silva. If they want to give her a title shot against Valentina, I'm all for it. If they want to give her a shot at the winner of Macy Barber and Erin Blanchfield, I love that too. But no matter what they do, Natalia Silva, you're a bona fide, certified top 3 contender in the division. And your next fight's either going to be for the title or a title eliminator. So it's bright skies for Natalia Silva. And I think she might be the future of the division. Also on the card, we had Benoit Saint-Denis defeating Kyle Prepolek. Look, the odds indicated that this shit was a mismatch. And shout out to Prepolek for having a moment or two. Listen, Benoit's kind of suspect on the feet a little bit, but y'all know about his grappling dominance. And eventually he got it to the mat, hit an arm triangle. Great job. Now let's see that Joel Alvarez fight rebooked. And for Kyle Prepolek, hey, kid, let's drop back to your normal weight class, give you one more chance because you took this on short notice. But yeah, the UFC is brutal. And let's see Benoit versus Joel Alvarez. So Mike Malott against Charles Radke. Wow, this fight had the most heat on it. And like I told you all on my breakdown, that Canadian crowd was going to be like, fuck you, Radke. And that's exactly what they did during that fight. And Radke, listen, I'm all about shit talk. I love some good shit talk, but I like it when it's clever and when it's witty and when it's funny. But the kind of shit talk that Charles Radke was talking, you know, maybe if you're hanging out with your friends in private, maybe. But like when you talk how Charles Radke talked, you have to back it up, because now it's not just about Charles Radke versus Mike Malott. Now it's Charles Radke versus the entire arena. You put so much pressure on yourself. You put a target on your back, and now you got to live up to it. Now you got to back it up. Now it's not just a fist fight anymore. Now it's about backing up your words. And boy, did he not back up his words even a little bit, even a little bit. Charles Radke was the guy who had all these first round knockouts, and Mike Malott comes out here and sleeps him badly, starches him in round 1 with a nasty left hook, a couple follow-ups for, you know, we're just academic, put him out cold. And Mike Malott could have right then and there been totally unclassy, and I would have been cool with it. He could have flicked off Radke. He could have said all kinds of shit, but he was like a class act about it, man. And I really respected that. So shout out Mike Malott, and let's see what they do with him next. Do you think he's ready, you know, for another top 15 chance? Like, should we do the Magny rematch? Dude, fuck it. Let's do Mike Malott versus Neil Magny rematch. Okay. I'm down for that rematch. If not that, let Magny, you know, fight against, let Malott fight against a fringe top 15, top 20 guy, you know, because that was a great fucking performance. Now, oh man, speaking of great performances, right before Mike Malott was Jasmine Jasudavicius. And I know tons of people were betting on Jasmine to finish Jessica in the second round, to finish her in the third round, you know, to go out there and kind of soften her up in the first round, then finish her in the second or third. Dude, this fight didn't even get past the 3-minute mark of the first round. This was a 1 takedown, and the fight was over shortly after situation by Jasmine Jasudavicius. Wow. I was blown away. Hey, Jasmine, you want to skip the line? I'm down for it. I mean, I'm not saying title shot, but if she wants to fight Erin Blanchfield or Macy Barber, I'm all for it. If Jasmine wants to fight the winner of Rose Namajunas and Miranda Maverick, the Atlanta co-main event, I'm all for Jasmine versus Rose as well. So Jasmine, you just opened up massive possibilities for yourself in this division, and your future is very, very bright. Anytime you beat Jessica Andrade, let alone finish her, that's a massive, huge deal. So, wow, I really feel like Jasmine Jasudavicius and Natalia Silva were two of the biggest stars to come out of UFC 315, in addition to Jack Della Maddalena, of course. But Jasmine Jasudavicius, she's 35, 36 years old, but she's getting better every fight. She's a young 35, 36. And I feel like she's entering her prime at that age, which is crazy. So you love to see it. So Ion Cutelaba and Modestas Bukauskas, man, I thought that Cutelaba kind of got the short end of the stick there. I really thought he won that fight, guys. I didn't have any money on it, nothing. Like, I had money on the Fiorot fight, and people were telling me I got robbed. I didn't think I got robbed. I thought that fight could have gone either way. Well, I didn't have money on the Cutelaba fight, and I thought Cutelaba won 2 of the 3 rounds. So I feel bad for him. He should be on a 3-fight win streak, which would be the longest win streak of his UFC career, and they took it from him. Oh, it's unfortunate. But either way, he's performing better. He's trending in the right direction, and I can't wait to see how they match him up next. Maybe Ion Cutelaba and Navajo Sterling, who competed against Ivan Erslan the fight before. And Navajo Sterling, man, a little slow first round, but damn, he put it on Ivan Erslan in those second and third rounds and showed off all areas of his game. Got a knockdown, got 3 takedowns, a couple dominant grappling positions. I was like, okay, Navajo, that's what I wanted to see from the jump. Now I'm starting to understand what people are talking about. So how about Navajo Sterling versus Ion Cutelaba, or Navajo Sterling versus Modestas Bukauskas? I'm down for either of those matches. So Marc-Andre Barriault, he didn't just knock out Bruno Blindado. He broke Bruno Blindato's face. Man, I hope Bruno's okay, because I'm a huge fan of his, and I know he was going through it mentally. Well, now he's going through it physically, but Marc-Andre Barriault badly needs to get back in the win column. That's exactly what he did. He got a performance bonus, got a first-round knockout in under 2 minutes, and a power bar is back. And Daniel Willie Cat Santos went up a weight class on short notice and defeated the much bigger Zhang Young Lee. I mean, damn, we knew he was the better fighter going in, but I thought size might be a factor. Size was not a factor at all. Skill was a factor, and skills truly pay the bills. And Daniel Willie Cat Santos went out there 30-27, almost 100 significant strikes, 6 takedowns. Like, damn, he put a clinic on him. I'd like to see Daniel Willie Cat Santos just put down that Brazilian barbecue, put down that picanha, put down that medium rare garlic beef, and let's get back down to 135 pounds and make a title run, kid, because you are that good. But it's not enough to be skilled. You got to be disciplined too. Your diet's got to be in order. You got to make weight. You got to show up to the fights. And I think if Daniel Santos can do that, he's a future top 15 guy. Will he do that? That remains to be seen. But Daniel, I'm rooting for you, bro. The skills are there. You're surrounded by the right people. Training wise, shoot the box. Like, come on, man. Let's make a run. I don't want to wait 2 years to see you fight again. I want to see you fight in 2 months. So come on, Daniel. Let's get it together, kid. And last but not least, wow, Beskat Almakhan starched Brad Katona in just over a minute. I said I needed to take notes on this fight. I wasn't sure about Beskat Almakhan. Now let me tell you something. I am sure about the power he carries over, because we saw those knockouts on his regional scene. We saw him drop Umar Nurmagomedov. Now we just saw him be the first man in UFC history to sleep Brad Katona. Very, very impressive by Beskat. So, yeah, Beskat versus Malcolm Wellmaker. You know what I'm saying? I'm down for that. But listen, man, I think Beskat, he's got a bright future. Now I know a little bit about him. Now I know how those skills are going to translate at the UFC level. So you love to see it. So guys, I'm going to be back this Wednesday night live at 7 p.m. Eastern time with a guest to break down the Burns versus Morales card in depth. I'm going to have all my study done by then. Like I said, I'm recording this Monday, so I'm going to be back Wednesday night with a full breakdown. I have a great guest booked. Now, he was supposed to be my guest on the Iowa card, and he had to pull out, so I got Cody Durden for it. Now he's supposed to be my guest Wednesday, so I'm hoping he shows up, because this guy makes some great gambling content. But no matter what, I will be there Wednesday night for y'all at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and I look forward to it very, very much. So until the next time, let's cash these bets.